Hey there YouTube, Arvin69 here. Today we're going to have a look at handhelds. More specifically, we're going to have a look at the original Game Boy. Now when I was a child I never had one of these. I started off with the Sega Game Gear was the first handheld I ever had. Was never lucky enough to get one of these. However, as you can tell, I have been building my collection back up again of handhelds and recently purchased this one to add to the collection. Now while the screen is a little scratched and the case is a little on the grubby side, that can be fixed easily enough. The problem we have with this one, the vertical lines on the display are dead in some patches. Now this can be fixed simply with a soldering iron, and that is going to be today's video. We're going to have a look at dismantling this original Game Boy and seeing how we fix the vertical line problem on the display. So let's get started. So before we get into this, these are the tools we're going to need. Obviously we're going to need the original Game Boy. We will need a tri-wing screwdriver to open the Game Boy up, and then to effect the actual repair we're going to need a soldering iron. But for now we don't need this, so we'll just move that to one side out the way. And the actual Game Boy fault itself, if we turn it on and we have a look, there we can see down the side here we can see that there are some lines that are not drawn. I've got the contrast turned all the way up, so if we adjust the contrast you can see that's where you would normally see the Nintendo logo. If we turn it all the way, we can see the affected lines down the side here. So if we turn this off, turn the Game Boy over, we can see there are 4 screws on the back here. If we open the battery compartment up and pop the batteries out, you'll find 2 more screws under the back here. 1 and 2. So we'll start by undoing these 4 screws. Now when we open the Game Boy up, you'll need to be careful, as there is a ribbon cable attaching the front to the rear. This ribbon cable here attaches just inside there, if you can see, and this simply, to detach it, all we need to do is slide the ribbon cable back this way ever so carefully. There is no connections, it's just a push fit. There we are. So with that now detached, we can set this to one side. We will need this later on in a second. And now we can see inside it's just Phillips head screws to remove the actual board, as we need to be on the other side of the board to get to the contacts we need to fix. So we'll start by removing the Phillips head screws inside here so we can get to the back of this board. Now with all the screws removed, we need to lift this board from the outer casing. Now when you do this, be careful because the board may be glued to the outside of the case. If it's been opened before, then you should have no problem. If it's never been opened, then you will find a bit of resistance. So carefully ease the board up at one side, the other, and then just simply lift the board out. When you turn it over, you can see the actual Game Boy itself and the screen. And you'll probably find that this sticks and has a lot of years of dirt gunked onto it, which is a bit minging, but that's not what we're here for. So we'll set the case to one side. Now the problem with the vertical lines, they're on this strip here. If you've got a problem with horizontal lines, there's a thinner strip underneath there, and I don't think that is fixable. But today we're looking at the vertical line problem on this bar here. Right, before we go any further, we shall get rid of the screwdrivers and the back battery cover. What we'll do now is, we've got this exposed, we will attach it back to the back plate. So we will get our batteries and pop them back into the Game Boy. 1, 2, 3, 4. We will reattach the ribbon cable. Right, with the ribbon cable reattached, Right, now with the ribbon cable attached, the next thing we need to do is there is a small rubber strip just at the bottom of the screen here. We need to remove this with just a flathead screwdriver. It should come off fairly easy, as the contacts we need to fix are underneath this ribbon, this rubber strip. There we are. We'll peel that off and we'll put this to one side as we will need it when we are finished. Now what we need to do now is at the very tip here is run a hot soldering iron along these, as the problem is caused by this ribbon cable becoming desoldered from the bottom of the screen. So by running a hot solder across, we remelt the solder underneath and reconnect the joins. So if we turn the Game Boy back on again, there we are. We can see our faulty lines at the side here. There we go, we can see better there. Now as we run the soldering iron across, we should see these lines start to flick. Now the thing to remember is not to keep the soldering iron on too long, and don't worry about this cable here, as this is very, very heat resistant. So we'll make a start. Right, I've just moved the camera around so you can get a better view while I actually do this. So we've got the soldering iron nice and hot now. And as you can see, we've got the lines up the side of the screen here. So if we start to run this across, we should see the lines disappear and appear. There we go. And it can take quite a lot of passes and quite a lot of time to get this to actually work. But the trick is not to keep it on for too long. Let it cool down, we can see we've got some of the lines back, and it's just a case of keep going backwards and forwards until we eventually get all the lines connecting now. And have we got them? I believe we have all the lines now. Yep. That is all the lines now reconnected. As simple as that. Now all we need to do is reverse the steps to connect everything back up again. Right, so we'll start by disconnecting the screen again to make life a little bit easier. Just slide this ribbon cable down gently. Oops, like that. Put the back to one side. The rubber strip that we took off earlier we'll place back on here, and this gives it a little bit of pressure on the contact when it's all back together again. Right, we'll bring the faceplate back in again. If we turn this over, and yep, thought that might happen, the rubber pad fell off, so we'll put that in place first. Let's connect it up on the little pins. There we go. We'll take our board, flip it over, and gently rest it into place. Get the speaker back in again, and pop the board down. There we are. And then we'll need our Phillips head screwdriver and the screws. Luckily, all the screws that we took out from this board are identical in size, so it doesn't matter where they came from, they'll all go back. Just make sure you don't miss any when you're putting them back in again. I like to do the top two and the bottom two first. And then once the last screw is in, I like to go around and just give them all a test to make sure they're all in tight. Not too tight, otherwise you may crack the board. There we are. And we have the fascia plate reconnected. Now all we need to do is again reattach this ribbon cable to the top part. Now the easy way I found this was to make sure you line it up perfectly straight, like so, and it should slide in fairly easily. If it's not going in easy, it means it's not connected up straight. And then give the cable its A little twist. And then pop your tri-wing screws back in again, not forgetting to remove the batteries. And two just to hold it in place, and we will turn it over and test before we put the remaining screws back in again. There we are. So if we flip this over, power it on, and as you can see we have a solid black screen with no missing lines anymore. And that is the original Game Boy DMG001 fixed. Do me a favour, if you enjoyed this video, please smack that thumbs up or the thumbs down button, but please leave me a comment below and let me know what you thought of the video. And also, if you can mash that subscribe button and subscribe to the channel, helps out immensely. Now if you don't mind, I'm about to go and slay some Terminators. Take care.